Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a paradox that pretty much flips modern nutritional advice on its head. And it all comes from the fascinating work of one pioneering researcher from almost a century ago.
So let's just start with a question that really cuts against decades of what we've been told. For years, right, we've heard that fat is the enemy, that it's the main driver of disease. But what if the real-world evidence tells a completely different story? To really get our heads around this paradox, we have to go back to the source. And our story, well, it doesn't begin in some fancy modern lab. It starts with a really curious investigator who was on a quest to find the true roots of human health.
Meet Dr. Weston A. Price. Back in the 1930s, this dentist and researcher had a pretty radical idea for the time. He thought that modern, processed foods were the real cause of modern diseases. And to prove it, he set off on this incredible journey, traveling all over the globe to study isolated groups of people who had never even seen them.
He wrote all about his epic journey in his book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And for our explainer today, we're really going to zoom in on chapters 5 and 6. That's where he talks about his absolutely stunning observations of the Inuit people, way up in the high Arctic.
So where did Dr. Price's quest take him? Well, to one of the most extreme, most unforgiving environments on the entire planet, to study the people who actually called that place home. His subjects were traditional Inuit groups. Now, this was so important because they were completely cut off from modern processed foods. You know, the refined sugars, the white flours, the canned goods that were starting to spread everywhere else. They lived entirely off the land and the sea, which basically made them a perfect natural experiment. So what was the secret to their incredible health? Dr. Price was absolutely convinced it all came down to what they ate, a diet that was dictated purely by their harsh but also surprisingly bountiful Arctic environment. Their entire diet was made up of what they could hunt and fish. Think about that. That means a menu loaded with fatty fish packed with omega-3s, caribou, and especially seal, which they prized for its nutrient-dense meat, organs, and fat. And you know what's missing? For most of the year, there were practically zero plants.
Now, let's look at the nutritional breakdown because this is where things get really interesting. This wasn't just a low-carb diet. It was basically a no-carb diet. The vast majority of their calories every single day came from animal fat and protein. I mean, by any modern standard, you'd look at this and think it's an extreme and frankly an unhealthy way to eat. So just imagine a diet of almost pure animal fat and protein. What would you expect to find? Widespread heart disease? All sorts of chronic illness? Well, what Dr. Price actually found and documented was, and I'm not exaggerating, nothing short of astonishing. It wasn't just that they were, surviving in this brutal climate. According to Dr. Price's incredibly detailed observations, they were thriving. He documented a level of physical health and just pure robustness that completely defied the nutritional science of his day. Dr. Price noticed two really incredible health markers. First, they had this amazing immunity to disease. And second, and this just blew him away as a dentist, they had perfect teeth. We're talking virtually no cavities, no decay, all without ever using a single toothbrush. And right here, this is the central paradox. Modern nutrition often tells us that high-fat diets are dangerous. But the Inuit reality, the one Price actually saw with his own eyes, it suggested something completely different. That a diet of high-quality, unprocessed animal fat, rich in things like fat-soluble vitamins, could support incredible health. It wasn't about the amount of fat, it was all about the quality of the food.
So, okay, what does all this mean for us today? I mean, why should a study of an isolated Arctic community from the 1930s matter to our lives right now?
Well, the big takeaway here is that this evidence really pushes us to think more critically. It suggests there isn't just one single healthy diet for everybody. Human beings can adapt and thrive on wildly different ways of eating, as long as the food is whole, unprocessed, and packed with enough nutrients to give the body everything it needs. And that leaves us with one final thought. If a diet that seems so extreme by our standards could produce such amazing health, what does that really say about our modern food system? It forces us to question not just how much fat or how many carbs we eat, but the quality, the source, and the history of the food that's on our own plates.